going to introduce the eighth note, and we're going to do some more three-way coordination, which will result in us, and probably part two of the lesson, looking at more rock grooves.
Excellent.
And then to help us understand eighth notes, we're going to look at the single stroke roll.
The single stroke roll.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, it's not a term that I'm familiar with.
Okay, well, you will be by the end of the lesson, obviously.
Lovely. All right, what are we starting with first then?
Okay, firstly, what I'd like to do is explain eighth notes. In lesson one, you will recall that we started to study quarter notes, and that you get 4 quarter notes in a bar of common time. Okay, now each of those quarter notes is worth 1 beat each. Okay, eighth notes, probably not entirely unsurprisingly, therefore divide a bar of common time into 8 notes.
Exactly what I was going to say there, Brian.
Okay, let's have a little look at the devils, and here they are. We have a bar of quarter notes, which for this particular example we've got on the middle space on the snare drum. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 in our first bar.
Yes.
In our second bar we have eighth notes, and you can see that we've got 2 notes per beat. Now each of these notes is worth half of a quarter note.
Right,
so
okay.
therefore an eighth note is worth half a beat.
All right, and they look slightly different as well, don't they?
Yes. Quarter notes have got a note head and a stem, and eighth notes have a note head, a stem, and a tail. And what is commonly done when writing eighth notes is that we've joined the tails of the eighth notes together to form a beam. Okay, so what we should explore is that how these are counted and how they sound.
Exactly.
And that will lead us on to single stroke rolls in a moment. So what we've got is 4 beats in the first bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. Second bar, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So what's happening here is the second note is halfway between beat 1 and beat 2, but we're not going to say 1 and a half, 2 and a half. It's a bit of a mouthful for obvious reasons.
Yes.
For flow purposes, we say and. It's a well accepted term. So what I'd like to do now is actually put the knowledge of eighth notes into some kind of practice. So what we're going to do now is look at the single stroke roll, which is a technique that's used widely in drumming, but I think is a lovely way of introducing eighth notes into our playing. Okay, so a single stroke roll comes from a very simple fact that you play a single stroke or a single strike of the drum with either hand, alternating hands. So in this particular example, we're going to start with the right hand. So right, left creates a single stroke roll.
And what does a roll mean?
A roll, that's a term used for when you're playing a series of notes with your hands. Historically, it comes from lots of snare drum playing, but now, generally speaking, people use it as sort of fills, rolls and fills around the kit. Often the most exciting part of playing. It's the bit that catches everybody's eyes when they're first interested in drumming.
Do me an exciting roll.
You want an exciting roll?
Yes, I want an exciting roll. Well, obviously, we're jumping way ahead now, but...
Well, I'll give you a simple exciting roll so you can see what's going on.
All right. Single
stroke roll around the kit. Most people will recognise this.
Very good.
Very exciting, I know. Have to be careful not to get off the beaten track here.
No.
Keep on focus. But that's where single stroke rolls will be able to articulate our technique around the kit, and they'll help enormously when we get the coordination going.
And that's what that will progress to.
Absolutely.
All right, so then
great.
let's keep it simple with our single stroke roll.
Yes.
Which hand do you start with first?
Well, you start with the right hand. What I'd like to do is show the video, and then I'll be able to explain what's going on in the video, and then I'll do some playing myself, show people how to practice. So for exercise 1, I'd just like to talk through the video that we've got on screen here. And what I'm doing is I'm playing the exercise, and I'm playing a bar of quarter notes, followed by a bar of eighth notes.
1, 2, 3, 4,
and here it is here.
1, 2,
So you can see that I'm alternating hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 hand. So what we're looking for is to try and create a nice even roll between the hands. It's called hand coordination.
Yeah.
There are lots of different rolls which we'll get onto as the course progresses, but this is the most fundamental and most important. So now we've seen the video, let's actually try that for ourselves.
Let's put it into practice.
Okay. What I'm going to do is bring up our extractor here so I can play along with this to see whether or not I'm playing in time, and give a demonstration of not only the the evenness that we need to achieve between the hands, but also making sure we're controlling time and getting a good sound of our eighth notes in relationship to quarter notes.
All right.
Okay, great. Here we go. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Okay.
See, my untrained ear would say that you did that perfectly.
You could be right. It would be a first. But let's have a look at the analyzer. So the whole idea is you know, you're trying to play as evenly and as consistently as possible. You're trying to play what the exercise is asking you to play. The analyzer helps you do that. Now, we only played part of that exercise so as not to bore the viewers too much. But when you're practicing, you're going to have to practice that exercise a lot.
How much is a lot?
Well, I mean, you know, every day, 10 or 15 minutes a day on your lessons as a minimum. And I think it's a good point about practicing in general, just to mention very briefly that it's better to do small amounts of practice, 5, 10, 15 minutes every single day, than it is to do an hour on a Saturday because your lesson's coming up.
Yeah.
It's much better just to do a little bit of practice, because the repetition and going back to it is extremely beneficial. So yeah, I did pretty well here, which is kind of cool. Kind of pleased about that. So,
I'll say, you being our teacher and everything.
well, trying to concentrate a little bit. Yeah, we got all black notes, which is fine. So what we're doing here is we're reproducing what's going on. So I got up to bar 9. So
so the top line is the computer, effectively, and the bottom line is you?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, what we're doing here is just reminding ourselves that the lesson is on the top stave and our performance is what we have recorded on the bottom stave. So it's comparing the notes.
All right, so
Cool.
let's talk about technique and how to get those even kind of notes. Just quickly tell me where we should be holding our hands.
Yeah. Again, without getting overly technical, you're looking at holding the sticks loosely in your hands. I tend to use a back of the hand grip, where you use those 3 fingers to hold the stick, goes gently across the palm, and then your thumb here and your forefinger, this third joint or little crease, is where you would hold the front of the stick, and that gives you a nice solid grip. But it needs also to be able to sort of move a little bit so that you can respond to the bounce, because you know, when you're hitting a drum, you're actually creating some friction, so you need to be able to ride with what's going on there. You get a nice bounce, so you need some flexibility in here. Most of the time you would play with a wrist action so that the stick and the hand can respond to the bounce of the pad, the bounciness that's in there. You can play with your fingers, but that tends to be for more gentle, closer playing. You can use your forearm as well, and in conjunction with your wrist, to create quite a chopping action. And then when you're really going for it, you can use your shoulder and your upper arm to create a very large stroke, but that's, for generally speaking, for very loud playing, for very loud accents. But that gives you a huge range, a huge dynamic range in which to articulate your playing.
Okay.
What I'd like to do is, in exercise 1, it signals in there that you can play both left-handed and right-handed. Now, we've started everything with our right hand. It's a bit of a right-handed world out there, I'm afraid.
There's nothing we can do to change it.
We cannot. But you should also be aware that of left-handed players should be practicing their single-stroke rolls as well.
Yeah.
And, of course, they should start with their left hand.
Is that because that feels the most natural,
Absolutely.
or it's the most easiest because of the layout? Or?
Well, good point. There's 2 reasons. Fundamentally, it's because it's the most natural way for a left-hander, in the same way that the right-hander is most natural for a right-handed player.
Yeah.
But in terms of layout, a left-handed kit player will have the kit the exact mirror image round. So the hi-hat will be over there, snare drum over here, and vice versa.
Why is that?
Well, that's because we play this way using our right foot, and left-handed players will play across themselves, left hand, just mirror image, because that's comfortable to play.
All right, okay.
a la Phil Collins, people like that.
Oh, really?
Left-handed, absolutely.